being out in the real world?
How funny it may sound, for them, it's better to be in prison. You know, they will use the terminology of, we are a family. They could never be a family because they're not a family. It's artificial family, but they feel respected here. They feel valued here. Amongst them, the 26 and 27, 28. Why are they so strong? Because they have the perception of caring for one another. And their perceptions are for them real. And we need to break down their perceptions.
I couldn't believe that the number could have such a powerful hold on its members, and that they'd rather be incarcerated here than be free. I had to see where these men came from. What could be worse than Pallsmoor? I find the answer to that question 20 minutes outside of opulent Cape Town. It's the home to which many of Pallsmoor's released prisoners return. And like Pallsmoor, it's ridden with drugs and violent gangs.
This is the Cape Flats, home to some of South Africa's poorest people. It's a deprived and disillusioned world, and consequently a fertile breeding ground for many of the country's street gangs.
Kevin is a local boss of one such street gang, a group called the Americans. I go to meet him on his turf.
I just saw a woman hand over some notes for a little... What was it? What would that be?
That will be for drugs.
Yeah, which kind? What kind of drug would it be?
Mostly the elderly people are still also on tick.
On tick?
I think they think it's a keep fit drug.
Keep fit drug?
Yeah, that's why they can clean out. Yeah, they can clean a house like in seconds, and it will be spick and span.
Tick is methamphetamine, and I doubt it creates domestic bliss. Before I travel deeper into Kevin's world, I need to understand the relationship between street gangs on the Cape Flats and the number in Pallsmoor. Andre Standing is one of the leading authorities on South Africa's gang culture.
During apartheid, for a very long period of time, there was no relationship between the numbers and the street gangs. And the numbers actually forbid it, really. They're saying, no, the numbers only exist in prison. They don't make any sense outside prison. Now, this changed quite dramatically in the late or the early 80s, when Mandrax, the drug Mandrax, became influential. The Mandrax is very small, and one
They call it
dealer...
button, don't they?
Buttons, right, yeah. One dealer can deal a lot of those and make a lot of money, whereas a dealer in marijuana, you can't really make much money. So in the 80s, you got a few gang leaders and drug merchants making a lot of money. And these guys have had a major influence on the way street gangs operate. And crucially, when they got sent to prison in the late 1980s, the prison numbers were suddenly confronted by these super rich drug merchants. So they kind of made a deal with the drug merchants. They said, what we're going to do is we're going to fast track you into the higher levels without you knowing all the oral history, without you having to do some of the more gruesome, initiation ceremonies like stabbing people. But we're going to give you a higher level. And in return, we want access to drugs, and when we leave prison, we want access to jobs as well in the drug industry. And it seems what happened is the drug merchants thought this was a good idea. They also liked the status of being generals in the 26s or the 28s. So they became these very powerful men in prison. And crucially, when they came out of prison, they started telling gangs to align themselves to the 26s or the 28s.
It seems the number is evolving and extending its reach beyond the walls of Pallsmoor. I was staggered to learn that there were now 130 street gangs on the Cape Flats, and that the largest of these is the Americans, with 5,000 members, all affiliated to the number. I caught up again with Kevin, a junior boss with the Americans, a violent ex-convict and a sergeant with the number. He invites me to the gang's headquarters, a small shack known as the White House. The Americans have a fearsome reputation, but I'm relieved to find them relaxed. In fact, a little too relaxed.
Guys, they leave the main bridge with the street.
As their drugs kick in, their conversation starts to flow.
But I'm right in assuming that the Americans are the biggest, are they?
Yes.
No. I put it this way. I go as far as the media, announced it, you know? By me saying that we are the biggest gang, it could be a lie, you know? It could be true too. But according to the media stated the most notorious gang in the Western Cape, the Americans.
And the word notorious, it means that you probably use violence occasionally, yeah?
Yeah, most definitely.
The gang are taking crystal meth and mandrax, a lethal combination of stimulant and depressant, which provokes extreme mood swings and aggression. Kevin's gang are Cape Coloured. In South Africa, the term coloured applies to a separate racial community distinct from blacks and Europeans.
About being what is known as a Cape Coloured, would you consider yourself to be called Cape Coloured or not?
I grew up in the apartheid area, and we were called Cape Colours. I grew up. I'm not ashamed to be a Cape Coloured. You know.
There's one thing that people say, though. They say that when both the regime was here, when the apartheid regime was here, you were treated like second-class citizens by the government then. And now the black regime here, the ANC regime here...
Seems to be with third now.
Really?
Yeah, we're going.
Is that a general consensus?
Yeah, that's how you see it. You see how you can count how many coloured people you find in Parliament. Then you see how many coloured, then you see how many European people you find in Parliament. And then you see the majority, the African people in Parliament.
Who's got the money now in the country? It's the blacks. The blacks and the whites. The colors, they don't see the colors. Why? All the armed robberies, all the murders. You get affirmative action, you know? I go for a job, the black man is get the first privilege.
The Cape Coloured shared the dream of a new South Africa, but it seems they've been left at the bottom of the pile.
When we went to school, every one of us had a dream. You wanted to become something in life, right? Like me, my wish was I wanted to go to see the world.
What do you think your future holds for you then?
My future, it depends. It depends. I can't predict my future.
I can't predict the future either, only witness the present. But like everything, the present is tied up with the past. The Cape Flats is a racial dumping ground, a legacy of South Africa's apartheid era. The community was established here 40 years ago, when coloured residents of Cape Town were evicted from their homes in what was known as District 6. They were relocated beyond the white enclave of Cape Town to a barren area known as Cape Flats. Today, 2 million of the Western Cape's poorest people live here.
75% of all violent crime in South Africa involves firearms. And there are an estimated 10 million unlicensed guns in the country as a whole. Many of them are here on the flats. Now Kevin, local gang leader with the Americans, has kindly agreed to show me a small part of his arsenal.
Such is the lawlessness of the Cape Flats that Kevin has no fear of showing me his guns. He's also frank about his dealings with the police.
Yeah, they will leave you. If you have 150 rand on you, you're free to go. You tell him, yeah, we got a gun on me.
And if you give him 150 rand, he'll let you go.
150 rand. Yeah, and
So
you
that's
go with
£15.
it. Yeah, you go with it.
When you're loading the weapon, you do this alternatively, don't you?
Yeah, solid, hollow.
Bullets with hollow points shatter on impact. They cause terrible injuries when fired at a person, as Kevin's friend knows to his cost.
He's got the example, his leg is 2 times. It splits.
Oh God, your leg is complete. Leon, what happened, man?
Shot him.
That was a hollow point, yeah?
Yeah, only one bullet.
There, yeah?
Yeah, the leg comes up here.
And it came out there and exploded.
Yes.
So they shot you in the leg, and where else did they shoot you?
In my palm. She exploded in my stomach.
Look at that. That was a hollow point like this.
Yes,
They
I had to sit through here.
you had to shit through
Yes,
through the
I
whole
can't use
thing.
the toilet, yes.
Because you couldn't use it, huh?
For a whole year, yeah.
For a whole year, you had a colostomy bag, yeah? Guns are a part of everyday life for gang members. They know how to use them and how to avoid prosecution. When you're putting the rounds into the magazine, don't you do something with your fingers?
Yeah, we actually put the wooden glue. You put onto your fingers. If you put this part, but we someone take a mist and you put it into the palm, then you just rub it. The wooden glue performs like another skin.
So it fills in your fingerprints.
Fingerprint. So your fingerprint won't be
On the gun.
on the gun because mostly if they catch you with a gun so big and it's on the ground, you can win the case. But you won't win the case if your fingerprints is on the gun.
So far, I've seen little evidence of any law on the Cape Flats. We asked the South African police to appear in this film, but they refused. In part 3, I discovered that being around Kevin has fatal consequences. And I return to Pallsmoor, where unexpectedly, the General agrees to meet me. I'm in South Africa, where drugs and gang violence rule the Cape Flats. Kevin is a leader of the Americans and a member of the notorious Number. No one is safe. Friends, his wife, even his 3-year-old child have died by the gun. Kevin is very close to his sister Janice, and I want to know how she copes with his life.
I don't agree with him being part of a gang, but he's a different man in the house. What he does outside is his own doings, and as I said, I have a son that I'm raising, and I wouldn't want him to be part of a gang, but he's my son's uncle.
When you look into Kevin's eyes, you can see that there's a lot of pain in there.
He does have a lot of pain, merely because he lost his son. His son he lost about 13 years ago now. It's very sad up until this day, merely because of the manner that he lost him.
How did he lose?
Kevin came home one evening with a cocked gun, illegal of course. And his son found it in the morning, and the gun went off, and he died. Yes, on the way to hospital.
I asked Kevin about his son's death.
It was a gun on the wrong place. That's why I don't. It's hard that people made some of the guns. Some guns doesn't have safety. Some guns can.
He found
work.
the gun. He found the gun, yeah?
Yeah, the impact to the ground. He was in my arms when he died.
Despite the life he leads, Kevin still believes in God. Do you believe that when you go, if you should get killed, do you think that you'll be seeing them again? Do you hope to see them again?
I'll be living in peace because I'm already there to straighten my path for the next life. There is, if God makes a promise, He won't break His promise. He doesn't break His promise because He didn't break His promise with most of His followers. So that will be. Even if I don't meet Him, I will be there with Him. The best is your family and relatives.
Even after the loss of those closest to him, Kevin remains a leader of the Americans and relies on drugs and religion to fill the void left in his life. With nothing more to lose, Kevin is trapped in a vicious circle of gangs and crime. Street gangs dominate the everyday lives of children on the Cape.